You opened vidIQ again last night, the same shortlist sitting there unchanged. 5 ideas scored and ranked. You closed the tab. You opened it again. You feel like your own mind is working against you. But your perception is not your problem. Your relationship to what you see is. You have been treating clarity as something you earn before moving. Every week you stay here, you lose feedback no research can replace. That first sale, that compounding knowledge, you are permanently missing it. What you do with what you see is what this is about. Here is what you have told yourself the whole time. That you are being smart. That launching without thinking is how people fail, and you are not going to be that person. You see the gaps they miss. You notice the saturated markets, the weak angles, the timing problems. And that awareness feels like protection. It feels like the thing that is going to save you from wasting 6 months on something that was never going to work. But here is what is actually happening. Your Notion doc with the full product outline is already written, and your Gumroad page has never been opened. You keep finding one more thing to check, one more angle to think through. You tell yourself that gap is caution. But that gap is the loop running exactly as it always does. Have you ever felt like you are getting sharper and more stuck at the same time? And does it ever feel like the sharper you get, the further away the actual work becomes? Because you are not seeing less clearly than before, you are seeing more. And your awareness is not pointing you toward the problem, it is pointed somewhere else entirely. So what is it actually pointing at? There is a name for what is happening to you. It is called epistemic perfectionism, and it does not mean you are overly fussy or neurotic. It means your brain has made one quiet mistake that is costing you everything. It has learned to read the feeling of uncertainty as a signal that you do not have enough information yet. And because that feeling is real, your conclusion feels logical. Of course you need more. Look how uncertain you still feel. Researcher Valerie Thompson at the University of Saskatchewan has documented exactly this loop, showing that metacognitive feelings like uncertainty function as stopping signals, not accurate readouts of what you actually know. And that mistake is costing you in ways you cannot see yet. Every time you find something new, the anxiety drops just enough to feel like progress, and then the bar for what counts as ready moves up just enough to stay out of reach. The loop is not informing you, it is running you. And the longer it runs, the harder it becomes to notice. That is why your Notion doc with the full product outline already written sits finished, while the Gumroad page has never once been opened. You are not lacking information. You are caught in a system that converts information into a higher requirement for more information. The feeling of not knowing enough is not evidence that you do not know enough. Every day inside this system is a day the market cannot answer back. It is just your nervous system running a pattern. There are 3 specific tools that interrupt that pattern, and they come from peer-reviewed research. Not productivity culture, not motivational frameworks, not generic advice about mindset. Most people never find out these exist and stay stuck forever. The first tool is called Implementation Intention Injection, and it comes out of the work of Peter Gollwitzer at New York University, whose team pulled together 94 separate studies on this exact question in a 2006 meta-analysis published in American Psychologist. Here's what Gollwitzer found, and it is almost annoyingly simple. When people set a goal, I will work on my idea tonight, follow-through was weak, inconsistent, and heavily disrupted by whatever else was competing for attention. But when people added a specific when and what, if it is 7 p.m., then I will do this specific thing, follow-through more than doubled, not improved slightly, doubled. That gap between goal and action is exactly where you live right now. And the effect was strongest in exactly the situation you are in right now, where a familiar avoidance habit, the research spiral, is already sitting in the slot where action should be. Your brain is not lazy, it just needs a trigger. Without one, the evening arrives and the old habit fills the gap before you have even noticed. Without one, the habit you are trying to break wins automatically. So here is what you do right now, not after this video. Write this sentence and fill in the blanks. If it is this specific time tonight, then I will spend 20 minutes doing the single smallest first action on my idea, and I will stop when the timer goes off, regardless of how it feels. Put it in your phone calendar as a reminder at that exact time. The action must be creation or outreach, not research. That is it, embarrassingly small, which is exactly why it works. But knowing when you will act does not answer the question your brain will ask the second the timer starts. And that question is the one this alone cannot silence. What she found will make you rethink every decision you have ever delayed. The second tool is called the minimum viable bet, and it comes from Sarah Sarasvathy at the University of Virginia Darden School, whose 2001 research in the Journal of Economic Psychology uncovered something that separates the way expert entrepreneurs think from the way everyone else does. Sarasvathy sat down with founders who had built and sold at least one company, people with a decade or more of real experience, and watched how they reasoned through new ideas. These were not optimists, and what they shared was unsettling. They did not ask what is the expected return. They asked, what is the most I could lose, and can I live with that? That reframe is not pessimism. It is what actually decouples starting from needing to be certain first. You are not betting on success. You are buying real information at a known price. Everything you think you need before starting is the wrong question entirely. That is the layer the first tool could not reach. Knowing when you will sit down does not tell you what to do when doubt asks whether the whole thing is even worth starting. This answers that. So here is the action. That question is louder than any tool you have tried so far. Write down the maximum number of hours and dollars you are genuinely okay losing if this goes nowhere. Not the number that sounds brave, the real number. Then, find the single smallest action that fits inside that budget and produces actual market information rather than more thinking. Your Notion doc with the product outline is already written. Most people skip this step and wonder later why nothing changed. The Gumroad page has never been opened. Open it tonight. Set a price. That is the bet. Now you have a when and a starting condition. But there is one more layer, and it is the one that keeps undermining both of these even after you have done them. The third tool is called uncertainty tolerance training, and the research behind it comes from Michel Dugas at Concordia University, whose 1998 work in behavior research and therapy identified something that will reframe every research tab you have ever opened. What she found should make every researcher in you deeply uncomfortable. Dugas found that when you struggle most with uncertainty, you do not actually seek information to get answers. You seek it to feel less uncomfortable for about 90 seconds. You are not solving anything when you search. You are using it as a pacifier. And every time you use it, the next hit has to be stronger. And the more you use it, the higher your tolerance for discomfort has to be before you can act without it. What actually breaks the loop is small repeated exposure to not knowing and surviving it. So here is what you do for the next 24 hours. 0 new research tabs on your business idea. This is the part most people refuse to try, and it shows. When the urge hits, and it will hit, you do not close it and white-knuckle through. You write the question down in a list titled Questions I Can Only Answer by Doing. You let it accumulate. What you find on that list will be difficult to argue with. At the end of 24 hours, you read the list back and ask honestly, which of these would research actually answer, and which ones only the market can answer? You will find it is almost all of them. That is when something shifts for you. Most people read this far and still find a reason to wait. Because when you apply all 3 of these, when you schedule the action, define the loss you can live with, and sit with not knowing long enough to move anyway, You are not waiting for confidence. You are the person who builds it from the only material it can actually be built from. That is who you are choosing to be now. You are leaving this video equipped with all 3 tools ready to use, not certainty. A better relationship with the uncertainty you were already living in. You now know something specific about how overthinking works and how to interrupt it. And that knowledge does not leave when you close this tab. So the next time you catch yourself spiraling on a decision, open a timer and give yourself 20 minutes to take the smallest possible action that moves it forward. Because if you watched this and did nothing, you are still a smart person. But if you picked one thing and moved while the doubt was still loud, you are something else. You are the person who finds out. And finding out is the only thing that was ever going to get you unstuck.